do you have in your coffee? You have like a Tia Maria or something?
Yeah, Kahlua.
Kahlua, yeah, okay, something like that, yeah.
Now you're cutting into my intro, Mike. I've already clicked record.
Oh, sorry.
Look at you. So welcome. This is Whiskey Friday on Blab. This is now, what are we on? 7th episode. This is crazy. It's lots of fun. It's been cool. It was an hour later than it normally was today because I was driving. It was about a 2-hour drive. I had to go up island and do a workshop today. And when I was going up there, I thought, maybe I'll just do it from up there and then I can save some time. And then I realized this isn't quite the sort of project that you can just go somewhere and do, because wherever you do it, that's where you're staying for the day. So, and last week it was fun. We got into some really cool stuff talking about like scaling and systems, and Graham's first time was on there. And we ended up going a little bit longer, and I just loved it. It really created this sort of like cool, exact feel that we were looking for the Whiskey Friday, which was just this casual conversation, having some whiskey. And so speaking of that, everybody's got a drink. I'm going to say today I have this wonderful bottle of Redbreast. If you haven't had Redbreast whiskey, and just listen, everybody just listens. Oh my God. Look at that. So this one, I want to say this one was graciously sponsored today by a wonderful consulting company, Change, Grow, Achieve. They do wonderful work. And so they've sponsored this great bottle of whiskey. And by the way, that's my company. And now it's, I got to talk to my accountant, but I think that's enough to give it right off. So, and anybody else that wants to buy me a bottle of whiskey, that's what we're working for. We're looking for sponsors, that kind of stuff. The other thing I found.
Good idea.
Yeah.
The other thing I found was when I was at the store, because I always have to have a nice bottle of Jameson's. And thank God they have this there. This is the Jameson's Easy Pour Tap, because I've been having such a hard time pouring my Jameson's. It just has not been going into my system fast enough. And now I have this wonderful Easy Pour Tap, and I'm so excited. So I want to thank you guys for joining. I am going to get you guys to go around and introduce yourselves. Start with Nicole and go to Graham and Mike. Say who you are, what you're doing, and also what you're drinking.
Oh, what we're drinking. That's fun and new. I'm Nicole Coulerier with Chatterbox Marketing. I'm located here in Victoria, BC. And it's not raining, which is awesome. It's been a beautiful day. I do online marketing and digital consulting. So if you wanted to get online and have a presence, help people find you so you can get some leads, then you give me a shout and we'd work on that together. I am drinking a coffee with some Kahlua today.
Yeah, baby.
Hi, my name is Graham Plum, and I run a financial advisory and financial coaching business. And we're really excited. We're just launching a brand new brand. And so we're just jacked. We just bought the domain last night. So we're in this kind of period of transition that we're super excited for. And I'm drinking Johnny Walker Gold Label.
Love it.
Cool. I'm Mike Bunker, and I'm in Montreal, and I'm with Michael Zellen. That's my company. And I do digital marketing as well, like Nicole, more on the SEO side. So I've been working a lot with lots of clients all over the world, helping them realize their true online potential. I just love to help people get to the top of Google.
Love it.
And you're good at it too.
Yeah, Bunk's the beast. So what I thought is today I wanted to sort of structure it in a way where we're going to sort of build this conversation, and this episode is all about sort of the dissecting that sales conversation, breaking it down. And like I said, I was doing this workshop today. One of my big missions right now is really getting away from this whole idea of like sales as this weird thing, this sort of mystery. And for me, like I said, it's hard for me because I sell sales. So like I'm twice as salesy as everybody else, right? And so when we look at it, there are some really, really simple things we can do to break down that sales conversation, make it easy, make it fun. I think that too many people are stressed out about when they go to sell. Would you guys agree? It's sometimes hard. You're like, we want that money from somebody. We kind of feel weird about it. And so we say things and we get caught in that conversation, and then what we freak out. And so what do? We just keep saying more stuff, right? So what we want to do is like actually break down that dialogue and say what makes sense, when do we say it, why do we say it. And so there's I wrote down sort of 5 areas that I want to look at. Is one, We're going to, so probably 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 areas. And out of those, I would do maybe 10 minutes for each section. And what we'll do is, I know Curtis is going to jump on. Anybody else that wants to jump on, we'll rotate through. So just put your hand up or say a question. I want to jump in. And so the first section we're going to talk about is some of the challenges with your sales conversation, some things that common issues that we see that pop up and how we deal with those. Then we're going to look at sort of a simple framework, and we'll talk about how we do things to keep it structured, what kind of questions we ask, what kind of insights we share, and how we gain commitment. And so that's kind of how I want to structure it today. So we actually had a flow and everybody kind of knew where we were. Just like a sales conversation, we should have some kind of a framework. Otherwise, it's just us drinking, which is tons of fun. Let's just keep going. So why don't we go around? I'm going to start with, I'm going to go, because my screen goes like this. So I'm going to go to Graham. What are some common sales challenges you see in the conversation?
I would say the most common, probably for a lot of people, and for me early in my career, was not being researched enough before I went into the conversation. And so, when you're not researched enough, I find the sales conversation is hard. And what I found different is once I'm fully researched, maybe I've looked into so many different things that then the conversation becomes a lot easier because I don't even use half of that information, but I feel like I've got it all, and then I can deliver from a feeling versus just one point. So that's been something that's really helped me, is being really well researched first, not using all the information, but having it.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So research. Cool. What, Mike?
I think in my world of SEO, I think one of my challenges is, and we've talked about this before, is a lot of people they just go right into price, and so it's getting them to feel their pain first, and to get them to make their decisions that they need to act on something and make changes. So that's one of the big things, is they're comparing my services to other people that that are lower quality, and so it's on price point.
Yeah. When you say lower quality, you mean in terms of the service that they're delivering?
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Okay, cool. What about Nicole?
Well, I was going to say something fairly similar to Mike, and I think the hardest part is, for our biggest challenge, is people aren't necessarily looking to find out how you can help them or what the challenges might be in areas where you can kind of solve problems, but they say, I just want a quote. Just send me a quote for some blogging, or send me some quote for some community management. And it's like, well, what? Just a quote on what? And that, I think, is a big issue. It's a big hurdle to come over, because it's not just sending a price out. It's, I have to know exactly what we're trying to do to give you a price, and to compare apples to apples, like Mike said before.
Yeah, exactly.
And so that is probably one of the biggest challenges, is people come in and they say, just give me the punchline. What is it? How much is it? And what do we do to get around that? What kinds of things do you guys do?
Well, we have to get them to frame their problem. So we have to actually ask them questions, and get them speaking, and kind of just getting them in their own words to really figure out what their issues are. And if they don't make changes, or if they don't act on it, then it's going to just stay the same, and they're not going to be able to. In my situation, and I guess everybody's really is. They're just going to stay the same, and they're not going to keep up with the rest of the people. Yeah. And because the industry's changed so fast.
Yeah. Why when we, because I always talk about this stuff, and when people ask us those questions right out of the gates, and they say, just give me a price, like Nicole, you were talking about, and we answer them right away, how do we feel?
Not good. Like we haven't solved the problem.
Yeah, you feel like sort of like just taken advantage of a bit, right? And like, you're not helping them, and you're just like, I need to take this conversation differently. But why do we do that? Why do we just answer that question?
Well, we're still trying to give them what they want and keep that conversation going, right? It's still, well, I know I can help you, but in what capacity? So you're just trying to push and dig, and at that point, you're not feeling great about it, because that's when you start feeling like you're pushing them into an area they don't really want to talk about. But as a consultant, that's an area you need to talk about, because I'm not just going to give out a price, and I'm not going to work with you just to work with you, because then your reputation and your brand become diluted.
Totally. I love it. One of the things that you're bang on is often, and this is for anybody that's kind of getting going, is we from a sales perspective, we often in the workshop we did today, people always are talking about operating from this place of sort of scarcity, like I really need that customer, and so we sort of, we think about, somebody wants to talk to us, and so we're like, oh, we're excited because somebody maybe has some money, so that whole idea of the customer's always right. We want to just serve them and just answer their questions, and that's giving them service. But when we do that, we don't actually really serve them. Right? Like we just don't actually help them. And we know that the conversation is bigger than that. But the problem is we rush into that dialogue, and that does nobody any good. And the fear is that scarcity fear, that scarcity mentality. But how do we then hold back from that scarcity? And how do we keep that brand stance to say, well, that's not what I'm going to do. And here's how we should structure this conversation without sounding like a jackass, without sounding like, like I'm not going to tell you the answer, and you have to play my game, right? Is there do you guys do anything along those lines? Not the jackass, the other way.
Well, yeah, like you kind of have to, and that's the part that's a little bit when you start feeling salesy, is because at that point you're kind of pushing them, and they're not looking to necessarily have that conversation. And I've started to realize that, well, maybe this isn't somebody that is a good fit because this isn't how I work. But, it is a little bit more difficult to not feel like you're trying to convince them to talk about something they don't feel they need to talk about. Yeah. And there's a big gap in that, like we've discussed before, of people doing some online research and becoming, self-made experts on certain topics, and then just expecting you to give them a price based on what they know. But what they need may not be necessarily what they think they need.
Yeah, and Nicole, that you hit it you hit it right there, because like if you say if we are a fit or not, that's a really good starting point, is to know, you can know that in 15 minutes whether or not you are a fit, and so if you're aligned or not, and if you have if you're taking it serious, or if the person is actually, if they're looking for services based on price, and they're looking for the lowest price possible, then they're not going to value your services anyway. And so you might not even want them as a client, because, you can do all this work, but they just still think that it's $99 a month or something, so that's for me, it's just knowing whether or not we are a match or not is right out of the gate. Yeah.
I was thinking of some of my experiences on the other end of it, like what people have I talked to and how have they dealt with me? I was thinking of that, and I just came through this whole period of interviewing and doing due diligence on all these different carrier companies, and they're all looking for agents like me. So I just, I did like 8 of them, and the ones I found I liked the most were the ones who told me that they wanted to work with me, and then said, but we need to make sure that it's the right fit. So it was like, yeah, we're looking for business, but we're also looking for the right fit. And then I felt like, oh, so these people are motivated and aware of where they're at.
Yeah,
so
I love that.
That felt really good when they told me they wanted to, and yeah.
And I remember
Go ahead, Mike.
No, I remember back in the days, like when I used to work for companies and stuff, and I would apply for jobs. That was a real big thing, was whether or not, like, yeah, okay, I've got all the skills that you want, but do I want you? Like, that was often I would go, nah, I ain't working there because I don't like their culture, or I don't, there's a lot of that. And so sometimes we have to almost bring that back into our lives as small businesses or consultants.
Yeah, and that's exactly it, is sort of reframing that conversation, shifting that relationship, that, it's not, we talked about that before, is that employee mentality versus the ownership mentality. And it's not trying to, it's always like people think it's like this power struggle, like I got to win, you have to lose. And we've talked about this before, being that weirdo, that salesy person. I was talking about it today with people. And I said, what ends up happening is like, it's almost because we feel like we're going into a battle. We feel like we gotta, because it's this battle, I want your money and you want my stuff. We're going to negotiate till somebody loses. We put on this armor, this sales armor. And it's like, who does that serve? Nobody. And if we can get into like really cool, just kick-ass conversations with people, like I've done I don't know, 15 sales calls this week for my business. And I love them. I just get to sit back. We talk about shit. We go, hey, what's going on with you? What's going on with me? We talk about stuff. And if through that conversation, we figure out that we actually, like, we don't mind each other, we say, okay, well, let's talk about business. Let's figure out a way that we're going to work together. Because you have what I want. I have what you want, possibly. We'll see how it works. If at the end of the day it doesn't work, who cares? But if we go into these conversations with this like idea that somebody's got to lose or somebody's calling and trying to take control of the conversation, it's like, there's always this battle, right? And so I think that's the biggest first challenge that I see is that, it's not about all that stuff, right? I was talking to somebody earlier this week as well, and they said, they had a VP of sales, and they really beat into their team that they were focusing on volume of calls. You need to make X amount of calls every single day. And we've all heard like sales is a numbers game, right? So they're like, oh man, and it's stressful, it's overwhelming. And so when we looked at the numbers, I'm like, if we think about what the highest value activities are, it's your ability to build relationships quickly, to connect with people instantly and find out that fit before you start talking about all the other bullshit, right? And so if you do that the right way at the beginning, the rest of it becomes easy. You don't have to discount, you don't have to chase any of that stuff. And so you can do more with less, but people are just out there just selling like crazy, but not actually selling. They're just annoying, right?
Yes.
So I'm gonna switch to the next up. We're gonna talk about a bit of a sales call framework. Who wants to jump out and let Curtis in?
I can jump out.
Oh, Nicole said it first.
Okay. Yeah, you go.
Too slow, Mike. You're next.
Well, I thought you guys were like the co-hosts here.
No, she just texted me earlier. Curtis,
Okay.
join us.
Just text you.
There he is. I miss her already, though.
Yeah.
Oh, I miss you. Curtis, what's up, man?
Oh, the dude. Yeah.
The dude.
Yeah, well, I hope I'm a good replacement for Nicole. Hopefully
Don't screw around. I've got a rating system on my card here.
Your hair's on the wrong side. You have to-
Oh, right.
Yeah.
My screen's up, so babies look at me that way. They're like, his face is upside down.
This is kind of like, okay, you can go, okay, this is what, like, a couple days of growth is me, and then you move on to, to Joe, and then on to you. This is it's like,
That's it. 3.
And I just trimmed it the other day, because I was looking in some of the webinars. My beard looked like it was twice as big as it is in real life. I thought, and like one guy said one day, he's like, "Hey, that's a nice little shot glass you're drinking out of." It like, no, it's a full size glass. It's just going up to my beard. It looks really small.
I love it.
But I am drinking whiskey.
What are you drinking?
So,
What are you drinking?
I'm drinking Glenlivet again, the Distiller's Reserve.
Cool. Curtis, anyways, go ahead. So the question is what are some common sales challenges, and what do you kind of do to sort of overcome those? And I know your world's a bit different, but it's all the same shit. You want some money from people, right?
Well, yeah, and you started out with talking about phone, like our conversations over the phone. Is that right? You're just kind of,
yeah.
So typically, I thought it was funny because he called me in on a point where, we're a hair salon. We don't normally like go and solicit clients by phone or anything like that, but we definitely talk to people on the phone. And when I first started the salon, I was working front end, so front end coordinator, client experience coordinator. So I was actually spending quite a bit of time on the phone with people and dealing with a lot of things. A couple of things that I'll just mention right off the bat. I'm not sure if you guys deal with this or not, but a lot of times clients will phone and just try to judge, their past experiences on what you can offer them at the same time. So in our situation, be like, I went to this salon, I hated it. I hated this aspect, or my hair got ruined by the stylist, and they did this process, and they're looking for you to be able to put the other person down.
Yeah.
And the first thing that we always do right off the bat, for our process is that we would never put anybody else down. We'd say, that stylist did what they did because of, either their training or the circumstance. We need to go through a full consultation with you to be able to determine what our response or how we would deal with it. It sounds a bit different than our experience, but just to be careful about not putting other people down, because there are sometimes those chronic complainers that will bring that history and that process into their next consultative process with you, and then it'll already start at a disadvantage on the foundations.
Yeah, and it sounds like you guys set that relationship early to say, here's how we're going to behave as a team here.
Yeah, the boundaries for your relationship are so important at the beginning for your foundations.
Love it.
I remember one time this lady she approached me for SEO services, and she said, if I hire you, you're going to be the 6th person in the last 2 years. And I was kind of like, oh, not sure if I want to be even.
Yeah, I don't want to be that.
That was kind of scary.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Let's jump into. I'm going to try and keep this on track that I've got here. Yeah. I want to talk about a bit of a framework. I have a framework that I use that I train people on. I don't know if you guys have a framework for your sales conversations. Does anybody have something that they use, sort of steps that they follow, whether it's scripts or anything like that you kind of go through?
Well, mine is kind of based off of what you do, but it's yeah.
Obviously, it's wonderful. Right?
It's fantastic. It's
probably the best,
and it's foolproof.
Buzz, shout out, right? What about Graham? Do you have?
Yeah, we used the standardized presentation before. That's what we used to do. We encourage people not to use the whole presentation because in our world, I mean, ours is a little different, I think, than yours. We still educate people, but ours is probably, we have to move them from a really far point to a really far point quickly, kind of in 45 minutes, you know? Mm-hmm. But yeah, we have a whole intake thing where we ask questions and people come to us at all different ages. So our presentation in the beginning is general information about personal finance. And then we're going to have segmented pieces depending on someone's age, where they're at financially, what they need to know. Some people need to start with a budget and they need to get smacked around a little bit and told, stop it. And then some people have $1 million. So the gap is big. So, yeah. Our general presentation, you wouldn't give to the guy with $1 million. Mm-hmm. You know, that would be silly because you'd be teaching them, you know, how an investment works and how a stock works and what the risks are involved in that are. He doesn't necessarily need to know that. He's probably educated on that. So, yeah, so we have some standardized stuff that's more for, you would say, like a junior advisor, because they're going to take on clients who are junior clients, you know, and they need to have a bunch of education first. And then we have a whole planning process, like a standard financial planning process where someone can put in their assets, liabilities, and that sort of thing. So the one thing we do that's much different than everybody else is we have a huge portion that focuses on eliminating debt. There's very few financial planning firms, like try to find one that does that. And that's our niche, is helping people get out of debt without affecting their credit score, really. So other than in a positive way.
Yeah. What about Kurt? That's awesome. I've got a couple notes that I'll touch on there too. Curtis, what about you? Do you have a framework for how you guys handle your clients and sort of working them through the decision process?
Well, we don't have a standardized, process every time. Sorry, you might have a little bit of a delay on mine. I noticed I've got.
I like it.
Shutter
looks
on
cool.
Yours, but it does. Okay.
It's weird.
So I would definitely start a conversation. I'm really big into providing rituals in a client experience, and I think that they should have certain types of foundational points when you're dealing with a consultative selling process. When a client phones you and every single time they have at least a part of the conversation that they're going to be familiar with, then you always know that you're on track with that call. So that really helps out a lot, I think. And every time we answer the phone, it's thanks for calling Design House Salon because health is beautiful. And then it sometimes it catches people off guard and they're like, oh, that's different. Why? Or whatever. And then we can have a conversation about our culture. But also it's just that every time they hear that, they know, it's not another shop or somebody rushed through the process. It's a little bit of a wordy thing. So it's kind of fun, because if you don't rush through it, then the clients get the perspective, they're going to take their time with me. They're not trying to get me like, hello, Design House, what do you want? It's like, thank you for calling, and it's going to take a little while for me to say this, but welcome.
I love it. You know what? There's a few things that we touched on here is that this all fits in. And so the way that I look at this stuff is Graham nailed it right from the beginning. Nicole's coming back. Welcome, Nicole. We missed you. You're the beard. Right? You're the beard of this group. Cheers to the beard. I think Curtis is like, if we did like one of those memes, it'd be like beards only once, right? But when we look at I always do my stuff in frameworks and systems, and I try and figure out simply just to keep myself sane and how we structure conversations. And a couple of things that Graham pointed out was the idea of segmenting, understanding and researching who your customer is. Like, and you will probably have 2 or 3 different segments within your customer base. But if you try and be all things to all people, you end up kind of being nothing to everybody. Yeah. And so understanding that you have certain groups of customers. So for me, I have very specific groups. I have, the big corporate clients. I have the small to medium businesses. Typically, they're trying to scale. And then I have individual clients that we try and solve problems. And each one of those groups are homogenous in a way that they have different challenges. So before we even get on a phone call with them, before we even know what's going on, we have to understand in our minds who they are and what their problem is. We used to say, like in the old school days with consultative selling, is we'd ask, tell me what keeps you up at night. And I think in the new market, you have to know what keeps them up at night. You have to get in bed with them, not physically, just mentally. You have to be in bed with them ahead of time going, what's bothering them? What's the stuff that they don't even know is bothering them before I get on this call? And so when we look at this, then we know what stages and how we move them forward. But if we enter into a conversation with that sort of empathetic, segmenting attitude, that's huge. And then what you picked on there, Curtis, was the whole idea of there's 2 things that you talked about is interrupting somebody's pattern is really important. We get into conversations and it's normal for people to just kind of their eyes glaze over. You're talking to somebody, you can hear them sort of disconnect, and that pattern interrupt is what shakes their attention. So they might even be calling salons, they call a couple, and all of a sudden they call you guys, and they're like, wait a minute, this is different. That interrupted pattern now brings that limbic system into play, that brings that brain into now they're like, hey, what are you guys about? And then if you also, you were talking about branding, if you're consistent with that branding and if you stand for something and you don't, we talked about at the beginning of this, if you don't shake that brand and you don't sacrifice your values for anything else, people will start to gravitate towards that more and more. But that does take time. That takes effort. And that takes, eliminating that whole shitty scarcity mentality of I hope I get more customers, because we start to take shortcuts when we start to get afraid. Right. And so that's kind of like a framework of what we're looking at. And as we go through, I'm going to move to the next one. Is talking about questions. Questions are like the lifeblood of selling, but they can be done completely wrong. Like some people just absolutely suck at asking questions. Some people ask no questions, and some people are really good. And let's talk about some of the questions you ask, how you use them, and what kinds of things do you look for before you ask questions. I'm going to start with Nicole because you're back at it.
Oh, that's
Want it in. You click the button.
Yeah. No, okay. So what kind of questions do we ask? One of the questions that I like to ask is what kind of things people or a business is doing currently. So if they're on Facebook, so what are you doing on Facebook right now that you think is working or that you think is being really effective? Or what is it that you think that you're missing? Because I want to see from their point of view what their idea or perception of the social media marketing is or should be versus what my take on their whole profile is. So I want to get them talking about what they like, what they see on other pages that they're doing perhaps, that they're not doing, and really get them talking about the things that make them excited and happy about sharing themselves online.
I love that question.
Did I answer all the questions?
You crushed it. That question is perfect. Is what are you currently doing? What do you like? You asking questions about what their current reality looks like. What do they want to do? What have they been doing? That kind of stuff. That's perfect. Bunks.
Yeah, I'm the same thing, but I'm adding have you looked at what your competitors are doing to see what they're doing, and then we can look at. Often, what happens is that people will invest a certain amount of money per month in SEO or digital marketing services, and then they compare with their competitors, and they'll say, "Well, how come this doesn't move as quick as they do?" So it's looking at their what the competitors are doing. So often I ask that, and basically just saying, where do you see your business in the next 5 years or 10 years, and are you going to still be around, and what type of investment are you willing to do with your social media or your digital marketing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. K-Rock.
Yeah, I'll jump in and say something. Yeah. I agree with everything that you guys said, especially from a positive angle of being able to look at, what do you want to do rather than, what don't you want to do. It's very easy to like get into that conversation of like talking about what you're not rather than what you are, keeping it positive. And I thought it was interesting, I never really looked at the correlation, but, like Nicole and Mike, you guys kind of have a similar business for what we have in a way, because people come to us, with an idea of how they want to be viewed from the outside, from others, and how they want to look like, with their hair and stuff like that to the public. Whereas you guys are wondering how they want to look like, to on social media. And I guess they do have competitors in some capacity, like, their boyfriends, ex-girlfriends, and, sister-in-laws, and just, every other girl that they're out for supper with, I guess in some ways, there is that aspect. I mean, we don't really, focus on that, but that's interesting. I guess if I don't take it too much further, I would say also it's really important to consult with really big ears and, be really willing to listen. And even if you don't agree where they're coming at, a lot of people struggle with communication. A lot of people are just very rushed in it, or they're not telling you the whole story, or they don't have that built up rapport or that whatever with you. But if you just listen through the whole process and listen, and really respect and demonstrate through listening, it gives them an opportunity to, at best, ask what your opinion is, and say, well, I've been doing this. Well, what do you think of that? Or what would you do? Then right away, you already know that you have that they really do value and respect your opinion, rather than jumping in and saying, well, this is a solution. So just a quick kind of comment.
No, that's it. That's it, man. That's the stuff. And if we look at questions, like I do sales training stuff all the time on questions, and questions are absolutely everything. But what I see people doing, and I go back to what Graham was saying, we do all this research, we look at segmenting, we understand our market, we do this research, and then we build these scripts, we build these things. Here's the questions. I want to ask my customers these 10 questions. And one of my absolute passions, and this is the real nerd of me coming out, is I love listening to sales calls. I do it all week. I listen to client calls. I listen to myself, this narcissistic, listening to what's going on. And I think we talked about this before, is I listen for more the interplay between the people and what's going on, and what most of the time we don't hear and we don't see. And the questions are always the thing that opens something up. And what people end up doing is we'll ask that question, why are you interested in this? Or what's the problem you see in the marketplace? Or what are your competitors doing? And the person will say something, and they'll be like, well, this is what's going on. I'm afraid of this, or I'm excited about this. And then we go, oh, okay. Well, my next question is, and we just go into this list of things that we want to get to. The challenge that people have is that people tell you, we talk about this, the nugget, man. It's they give you something. We talked about bids when we did that whole thing on the Love Lab about 3 weeks ago, Curtis, when we were talking about, how relationships are formed. And when we pay attention to what somebody's saying, it's not the first question that we ask, it's the follow-up question. And these aren't I'm not talking about kumbaya, let's sit in a circle and talk about our feelings for an hour. These are highly technical, big deal sales, complex sales that I've worked with people on, and also the kumbaya stuff. So everything in between, which is I'm going to ask you a question, and whatever you tell me, I'm going to make that important to me. I'm going to make that matter to me, and I'm going to listen for what you're trying to tell me, and I'm going to bring out from you a little bit more information so I can get clarification. Then I'm going to also ask you questions that help you. James has done his work. I got you here, buddy. Come to Victoria. It's good to go. And in case you weren't here at the beginning, I have a fast pour spout for my Jameson, so we can drink as fast as you need, brother. And so when we start asking those questions, when we get into that, that's what matters more than the things that we ask, the things that we say, is that we actually listen, because everything we do is supposed to open up a dialogue. And we start to learn about the implications and what else is happening, who else is involved because of this, and what have you done before, and why was that a challenge, and then what did you want to do, and what was your experience with other services like this, and how do you want this to affect your business long term, and what if you don't do this, and all these other questions that build off of that initial question. But when I listen to calls, inevitably the conversation pivots on two things. We either miss something. This is majority of the time. We miss something important that they said, and we just went past it because we're too busy about our own insecurities and our own BS, or we said the wrong thing at the wrong time. More often than not, it's that we missed something absolutely huge, and the rest of the conversation could have been pivoted on that one thing. Like somebody says, I'm just researching right now. And we say, okay, blah, blah, blah. We start saying all this stuff. We just go back and say, based on your research, what have you found so far? What's interesting? What's exciting? Tell me about the research you've done. What are you learning? And they go, oh, and they just start. And people will tell you, no matter how technical or how highly complex the sale is, or how I just say kumbaya because that's the word that comes to mind, or how kumbaya it is, it's the same stuff. And that's when we talk questions, man, like that's what people miss, is they miss the meat. They just try and get to their own agenda. That's my little rant.
What I like about what you do, Joe, is that whenever we go through a process, and it might be a formal consultation, it might be just a casual consultation, but in person, when you're consulting with me, anyways, I imagine you probably do it with everybody else, but you've got your book open. Even if it's casual conversation, and you're writing down and you're structuring our conversation as it goes. And it doesn't matter what it is, you're constantly structuring the conversation. I can see you structuring the conversation. You're picking up on elements that, you create an opportunity for me to be thinking through this and be like, okay, well, this is really interesting, this part. And so it builds that rapport. It shows that you're interested, even if it's something I'm not necessarily consulting with you personally on. It's that you said, hey, have you thought about this? Or, yeah, that was a good point. I'm going to put that into my arsenal of ability, so it empowers people to have an open conversation with you without you feeling like we're constantly judged by whether or not we're being a good consultant or a good communicator.
And it's so important. You're bang on, man. Is like taking notes is one of the highest forms of listening. And I learned this years ago, and it was just like people would be telling me things. And hi, Matt. Matt, what's up, brother? Matt Gibson just joined the call. But call, I don't even know what this is called. Join the blab.
The blab.
But showing that you're listening, showing that you care, and being like, hey, that thing you just said was important. And I know for me, it's not like a production that I do, but I know there's a little bit of theatrics involved. And so I usually start with my book closed, and we have this conversation, and at some point the book opens. And it's almost like, it's like now something's going on. We're transitioning into like, let's get meaningful. And people will say words, and we write down those words. And I'm like, hold on. And I get to say, wait a second. Tell me more about that thing you said. And now we take notes, and people now get to facilitate and collaborate. We start to create a story together. And it's cool to be able to do that with people, to be able to say, whatever you're telling me is important to me. I know it's important to you, but let's get what's really going on and be able to say, hold on, let's not go there yet. I want to talk about that, but let's come back here. You said this one thing, and I'm curious about that. But you can't do it I don't know if it's ingenuine, like you can't do it in a disingenuous way where you are just like, oh, and then what about this? And like almost like you're probing or consulting or trying to diagnose. You need to do it in a way that people feel like, wow, this person actually really cares. And you can have really cool conversations, even if it's like a very transactional sale. So welcome back, Graham-O.
Hey, yo.
Hi. You're up. We're talking questions.
Okay. I put a thing up there on the side that I was talking about where, as we ask those questions and, we're trying to find out what our clients want, or, especially in my business, we're asking questions about where they're at right now and where they want to head to in the future. And, maybe how much cash flow they have per month to invest for the future. And, maybe they want to buy a house and all those kinds of things. And I think the more questions that we can ask up front, and we were talking about this earlier, we can depict something where we're headed. But if they leave, and we don't end up doing a transaction or whatever, they go somewhere else and they don't get those questions, then they're gonna be like, that person really didn't ask much about me. Like, I don't know if they really care, or like, how are they going to serve me? They don't even know anything about me. That's pretty weird. So I think it's important to ask a decent amount of questions. But I think you're right too. You should run over it with somebody and say, hey, is this enough questions, or are these the right kind of questions? Especially for a business owner, great to have a partner.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Let's
and to have that little bit of that professional distance at times too. Like I always, I'm just going to keep saying nice things about you, Joe. But one other thing that's nice too is when I've had Joe consult with me about certain ideas as well. He always, it's important to come with a fresh breath every time, and you want to be the kind of person that you surround yourself with that have wings rather than like lead plates on their feet. When you're climbing the life ladder, you surround yourself with people that are going to bring you up. And even if I went and talked to Joe about something that he's like, oh my God, like, is this really like something I'm going to go down? Like, I have a ton of experience with this and this is a terrible idea. He takes it, evaluates it from a certain perspective, and helps me work through the process just because, he's a friend and he's a consultant and he has a passion for this industry. But also usually he ends up coming up with something that's like, wow, like, there is an opportunity here. Maybe I can help you with it in this context. Holy smokes, that looks awesome. We got somebody playing some music for us.
I love that you're getting there, and I was feeling that, but now we're gonna do guitar solo. Let's do it. We're gonna sales guitar the crap out of this. What's up, Matt Gibson?
Hey.
Great. Is that your real last name?
Yes, it is. But I don't play.
What Gibsons. Okay, right on, brother. How you doing, man?
Gibsons.
How you doing?
I'm doing great, man. I was listening to your conversation, and it's kind of something that I've been thinking a lot about lately. And I don't have whiskey. I have Diet Dr. Pepper. Although this podcast is not sponsored by Diet Dr. Pepper.
No, it's sponsored by Change Grow Achieve, one best consulting company on the planet.
There you go. So, but yeah, one thing that I've really, because I have a podcast for musicians, and I help music entrepreneurs figure out how to make more money. Mostly because I need to figure out how to make more money so that I can quit my day job and punch out. But
that's it.
So the thing is like, okay, so the biggest problem that plagues musicians is what I call the buy my record syndrome. And it's like you follow a musician on Facebook and all you get is buy my record, buy my record, buy my record, buy my record, buy my record. And it's just like spam sales. There's no and everybody is pretty much desensitized to everything. I mean, we're just like overwhelmed.
Everybody's desensitized to everything.
Yeah,
that's the best way to say it. Yeah,
it's like you walk down the street and you're getting punched in the face by marketers every 2 seconds.
Yeah,
and so, but it's kind of like when you talk about sales, especially when coaches talk about sales, right? Yeah. You kind of get this like almost BS sense. And I don't mean this in the wrong way, but it's like, okay, guys, let's just be honest. The best business model ever would be to take a bucket and stick it outside of your doors of your business, and people would just come in and throw money in the bucket. And at 8 o'clock every night, you go out, you take the bucket, you go inside, count the money. Heck, you could probably pay an accountant to do that for you, and then it gets put in your bank account and it's spent, and you're good, right? That's what really people want money. That's why people are in business, right? That's why people have jobs. That's why people do things like that. And so we're trying to figure out, how do we invent ways to convince people that we're not trying to get their money, and kind of like, it's kind of like lure them into the trap and then spring the trap, and it's like,
sure.
Right. But
Go ahead.
No, I was just saying is, everybody already knows we're trying to get their money, because they can feel it coming out of their pocket most of the time, right? But and so the thing is like, what if the model is just fair trade? Like in a marriage or a relationship, right? You don't always like what the other person is doing, but there's a fair trade going on there. There's you do things for me, I do things for you, and I think that if we can, I mean, there are people that would just take your product and not pay you anything for it. I mean, that's true. But there are also people that are willing to make fair trades. And so what do you think about that thought, I guess.
Yeah, totally. Well, there's two things is that I'm gonna throw at you. One is that I don't think we ever need to try and convince people to do anything. I think that we got to start. Joel on Twitter, I like this guy. It is about value. It's about adding value to the conversation. And just before I say, I do want to say I bought this most awesome thing because your guitar reminded me of it. I have the smallest violin in the world.
Oh, that's awesome.
So if people are whining, I bring this out. I just bought this the other day on Amazon. I'm so stoked about this.
That's awesome.
Anyways,
you got to keep that in your pocket.
So we can jam, me and you.
Yeah.
But what we're talking about, like for musicians, I love what you're saying is musicians aren't the only ones that have the buy my record syndrome. And you're bang on 100% is that everywhere we go, everybody's like, buy my stuff. Hey, what you want this? And it's like, everybody has this like ulterior motive that it's like, hey, how's it going? And you can tell they want your money. Right. But at the end of the day, we all like buying stuff. We all like putting our money towards things. There's lots of things that I have in my mind, even right now, that I want to buy. I was telling somebody earlier today is last year we had our car stolen from our condo, and we live in Victoria, so nobody steals cars, first of all. So it was crazy. But it was awesome. And it was awesome because we got to go buy a car. And so we had the money. We wanted the car, but then salespeople screwed it up. We went out and they just started trying to sell us cars, and we started to feel like, ugh, you can't have my money. And so even if we wanted the car, we're like, no, thank you. Right. And it's like, and it's two places, sales, car lots and mattress stores. I don't know where they go for their training, but it's terrifying to walk into those places. Right. But when you talk about, the buy my record syndrome, musicians and artists and anybody, what you're doing is you're building a tribe. You're building a following. You're building a culture. You're building people that say, hey, what you're doing kicks ass. And all you have to do is give your best stuff away for free, right? Not all the time, but most of the time. If you look at like Gary Vaynerchuk, and even just with like Whiskey Friday or what's happening on Blab, is we don't get paid for this, right? We go out, we say, hey, let's do cool stuff. Let's go have some fun, right? And if you do stuff for free, that like what Joel's saying, you do stuff that kicks ass, you do it for free, people eventually say, hey, I like what you're doing there. Could you help me? And I get a lot of my clients that way that, I just had a client yesterday. We're doing a huge contract. And I said, how long? He said, I found you. I've been on your blog for a while. And I said, how long have you been subscribed? He's like, 1.5 years or just over a year. And we've never interacted. Like, one of the challenges with having a blog or having these people is like, oh, nobody's talking to me on my blog. And I start to, then my violin comes, nobody wants to talk to me. But they're watching. Right? They're participating. They're looking. They're watching to see if you're consistent. If what you're doing keeps kicking ass, right? Girl, I spent a lot of money on just weird stuff.
I'm gonna start an Amazon business for you.
Oh my God! Yeah, you can sell me anything. I'm like, as much as I sell, I will buy anything.
Just be Joe's Warehouse, is it?
Joe's Warehouse of just useless, like funny shit. So what I'm saying, Matt, is like, if you give away cool stuff, like maybe you guys say, you know what do our artists are trying to do? Our artists are trying to get new followers. That's all they're trying to do. To get new followers, you have to have something to follow. So if they're like, I'm not going to give you anything until you follow me, that's backwards, right? We have to say, here's some cool stuff that you'll like. And if they like it, then, hey, what else you got? And they start following, and eventually they maybe feel guilty and they give you money. Right. But the business model is such that for artists and musicians, go out and do amazing things and do it as long as you don't end up homeless. I know a lot of people are worried about that. Right. As long as you don't end up homeless, do stuff, figure out what it works out to, and then get more people to like what you're doing. And the more people that like it, the more people that say, hey, what are you up to? The more you can start to say, well, I'm also doing this other thing. And they say, yeah, we're in. Right. And I think, and it doesn't mean that you got to ask people for money. It just means you got to demonstrate value so that people are like, yeah, I would put my money towards that thing.
I mean,
that's my long answer.
No, I know a lot of musicians that are doing that are poor. And the reason that I think, that musicians are kind of plagued with that is they have that, artistic, I don't want to bother my fans. I don't want to ask. I don't want to expect anything out of my fans, because they know every art is kind of like your escape from the marketing and the world that we live in,
Sure.
And so art in itself is kind of anti-sales, anti-marketing, some art is not, but, commercial art and popular music and stuff like that. But I mean, I think there still is a problem in the artistic community because of that. And so I'm trying to figure out a solution that that combines that ethos of the musician with marketing and sales and business, to create like a 6-figure income for a musician, because there are plenty of musicians that can do what you're saying and make enough to take care of themselves, right? But if they have a family, I'm a midlifer, I'm 45. And I got out of the military in 2012. I retired, and I kind of reinvented myself as a professional musician. And I was gonna make the jump. And then I realized, as I was making my record, that no one is probably going to buy this record enough to support my family. And I actually jumped when I hit over 1 million followers on Google, and I wasn't ready, and I about bankrupted myself. And so it made me pull back and realize that, hey, for somebody that's trying to make even like $50,000 a year sustainable in my situation, I'm going to have to come up with something different that pairs my music, uses my music as branding to brand other items or other things that are maybe even non-traditional. Like, for example, if Paul Stanley from Kiss decided to be a motivational speaker, right? He wouldn't have to do any music to make a good living doing that. He could actually go and speak at keynote functions and, do keynotes and stuff and speak at graduations and stuff. He could probably get paid big time. And artists in today's world, ticket sales are down. Streaming, you have to be a popular band, pop music popular, to stream enough to make a decent living for yourself. Merch sales, if you get a major record deal, they get a big cut of your merchandise and all of the other things that you were using to make money. So the system that people have somewhat relied upon to make a living is broken. And
absolutely.
So, it's like, what do we do to make a good living? And I say a good living is starting at $100,000 a year in America. That's the amount of money that you got to make to pretty much take care of anything that comes your way. And, other people would argue that's way too much, and some people would argue it's not enough. But, that's where I'm trying to shoot for myself, is to get a 6-figure income going as an artist, and do this exclusively. I have a podcast for musicians, and we talk about, I bring in people outside of the music industry, and I try to get them to help us think about ways of looking at business as a musician and an artist that's different, and but anyway, I don't want to hijack your thing, but the sales conversation here is like, okay, for an artist, it's a little bit trickier than maybe other businesses because of that music, that art escapism, that separation between art and business. So does anybody have any thoughts?
Yeah, Curtis is going to say something, and then and we're going to skip it into a bit of a different topic here.
Okay, cool.
But no, and that's good what you're saying. One of the things, just so you know, my girlfriend, she's listening too. She's a ballerina. And so we've had many conversations about art and business and how that all works. And I completely empathize with where you're coming from. At the end of the day, the question then becomes, is what will people spend money on? And if what they used to spend money on, they're not spending money on today, we got to change the game. We got to change the value. And so that's kind of where we would want to take that conversation. Right. Because my honest answer for you is I don't know. There's lots of things we can do, but most of the time what we're looking for is, what's the gimmick? What's the thing? What's the tactic that we should take right now to solve the problem, instead of stepping back and saying, what do people want? How do people interact with art? How do people go in? Because what we keep running into is the idea of arts needs to be funded by government, or arts needs to be supported, or people can't make money in the arts, and all this stuff that people are going to say because that's just what they're used to. I think arts, and I think anybody that has any talent, any value to offer in whatever field they're in, you can create a business around. You just have to be smart about it. And maybe as an artist, not you, but just in general as an artist, if you don't have those other skills, rather than learning them, maybe surround yourself with people that have those skills and build something that's meaningful as a business. And I don't think you need to switch gears and say, well, now I'm an artist, I need to be a speaker. But you need to still figure out how to monetize your core skill without apologizing for wanting some money. That's kind of my thing. And I want to say hi to Greg. We had a lot of fun last week. We drank for hours. I'm going to kick it over to Curtis for a second because he had something to say on what you were talking about, Matt. And then I'm gonna go into the next section, which is talking about insights. I want to open it up for Greg to join us if he wants here. And then we're going to shut it down probably in about 10, 15 minutes. And then we're going to just keep talking and drinking off the record.
All right, great.
So Matt, what is your podcast or what is your blab that you do?
It's called Kingdom of Rock, and it's at kingdomofrock.com. And it's just, it's for music entrepreneurs. It's not so much for people that want to do music as a hobby. It's for people that want to make a decent living as a musician. I interview rock stars, social media experts, entrepreneurs, business experts, finance experts. I do things like educate musicians on how to maintain their personal finances and get out of debt. Just trying to look at how do you make money from a rich person's perspective, so to speak. The people how do you do social media from an expert's perspective, and really trying to bring in all of the people outside of the industry that know how to do stuff that have proven they know how to do stuff, and try to figure out how can we combine that with the arts without tainting it, so to speak.
Sure.
Yeah, and I guess I'll just have something quick to say because Joe pretty much said most of it because he's consulted a lot with us. We own a hair salon, so we have artists that have a very difficult time selling because they a lot of times they view themselves as purely art. And the sales process is difficult for them. I guess one of the solutions from our perspective is to really research the consultative selling process, really look at what you have as a service, as providing a service to a client, and identifying what those needs of the client would be and how you'd fill that as a gap. Rather than, in some ways the government's kind of made it difficult for musicians because of so much funding. Because it makes it look like now it's a charity case rather than, actually being a living on a business. So I would say, from a consultative selling process, look at ways of being able to consult from a music perspective and being able to show that, you're providing a service through this process of providing them with to finish, to actually satisfy their needs that will solve a problem for them. And their value proposition in that regards is to pay you what you're worth. And you set that from what you authentically believe your solution is actually going to cause for them. Yeah. So, Joe.
What's cool is I was at a meeting up Island today, and I was driving back. Have you guys heard of Red Bull's got their own record label? Do you guys know that?
I've heard something about that. Yeah.
Yeah, they're in California. I was hearing about this, and what they've got is they built this sort of like this building because I think Red Bull's got like a couple bucks to their name, so they just like made this building in California. I think it's in Hollywood or something, and they have it as Red Bull does have wings, bunks, but what they did is they made it so that it was free for artists to come and use.
Yeah, and
so artists could go in and use this studio space, and they started to. Have you guys heard of the band AWOL Nation?
Mm-mm.
AWOL Nation is a pretty, they're blowing up this last couple of years, but they were one of the first bands that went in and checked out this Red Bull space. And through that sort of interaction, they were like, hey, you guys are pretty good. Let's sign you onto our label. So they've created a label for artists, but it starts from this free space, this kind of like cool, this cool space where like people are just like creating and being artistic and having the ability to just be free and talk about this stuff. And then the corporation says, hey, we like what you're doing. We're going to test this out. And one of the big things that I see is, and I think this will help you sort of reframe the way you're thinking, Matt, is a lot of the work that I do is with large corporations, and we work on supply chain management. We work on key account strategies, and we work on market, like segmentation, and really going into how all these pieces interact. And we start to look at channel partners and affiliate programs and all these kinds of things that build these deals. And in smaller communities, and let's look at arts or wherever you live as a community. In big organizations, people operate in silos. And what we try and do is break down those silos and say, rather than operating in silos, let's think systemically and think about a network theory of how everybody's interconnected on these projects. And in your organization and as your community, if this was the three of us that had three different businesses, which we do, I would sell to Curtis would sell to you, and you'd sell to me, and all these things would happen. But if we stepped away from that and said, well, wait a minute, what problems do the customers have? What kind of challenges they have? What do they like spending their money on? And how do we all contribute to that? So rather than all of us going into a marketplace and trying to pitch whatever we have, we step back and say, how do we collaboratively as a collective serve a market? Now, you may find, Greg's the man, he's going to join us. You may find, Matt, that there's some people that you can partner up with. There's some people that your artists can partner up with and say, as entrepreneurs, it's very friggin' lonely. Would you agree?
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
It's pretty lonely.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very lonely as an entrepreneur. So why would we not want to partner up on doing something cool? Why would you not want to partner up with business professionals or people that are doing stuff so that you don't have to sacrifice your art, your values, your vision to be something you're not? So find other people that believe in the same shit you believe in and go into market with something, right?
Yeah. No.
And I'm going to just welcome my man, Greg, because Greg, we had fun last week. We drank hours. And, welcome back. I was telling stories about you this week, but welcome, Greg.
Had a good time. Thank you.
Yeah, man. So welcome back. And any suggestions? You were listening for a little bit. Any suggestions for Matt around the arts? We're going to jump into in about 2 minutes about commitment is the last thing we'll talk about. Then we're going to shut it down and then just keep chatting.
I'm not a music guy, but I live in Nashville, so I happen to have friends, quite a few of them that are in the business. And it's hard work. Any business is hard work. Yeah. That 1% that get discovered, that's off the map. That's off the radar. And I'm talking to young people that are listening that may listen to Matt and are following and like, hey, this is how you do this, and this is how you get out of debt. It's a grind. It's not easy. And even then, if you did get into that 1% and hit it, are you really ready for what that really means? I actually met a lady who worked in a chiropractic office, and I've been seeing this chiropractor for 15 years for general maintenance, and she just worked at the front desk. Her son is a singer in Vegas. He's an impersonator, and he's supposed to be the best in the world at the person that he impersonates. And because of that, a record company came to him and said, we want you. And the contract was about this thick, and it scared him so bad that he said, I can't do this, because he would have to move away from Nashville and do a lot of really drastic things. So I think my thing is like, that rainbow that so many of us look at and go, wow, that's where it is. I don't really think it's quite the rainbow that most of us think in any business endeavor. I don't just mean music,
No, I mean, I think that, really what an artist wants to do is just play in front of as many people as they can and express themselves artistically in front of as many people as they possibly can. And they would do it for free if they could eat and take care of themselves, because it's fun. It's one of the funnest things for an artist to do, But again, it's like with what I'm trying to do with Kingdom of Rock, like Joe, what you were talking about as far as the community, I'm developing a membership site that's hopefully going to do that thing that you're talking about with collaboration and, teach guys how to, build their own website, do affiliate marketing, how to network, how to cross promote. Like this right here is great cross promotion.
Totally.
And we're not even related to each other directly, but like once this blab goes out, we're all going to be in fact, I want to make sure I tell a little bird here, but it goes out, we'll all be linked together and we'll probably follow each other and send people back and forth to each other in the future, and it's a great thing. And, but I think I think what you're saying about building a community, almost like the mastermind concept for artists, but bring in people that are good at all the different areas and kind of build that community. But record companies used to do that, except they would take all the money. That's the problem. They would build that community for the artists, but then they would take all the money. So I want to make it so that the artist takes most of the money and subcontracts all that stuff out, outsourcing, to other people, but learns how to build a team, how to hire Joe and Curtis and Greg to be a part of your team, and not give them all of your money. Like scale your business. How do you scale your business from that little community of people that like what you're doing to big enough to generate enough revenue for you to live comfortably as an artist? But anyway,
one of the things I'm gonna jump into the last piece here is that, and I wrote down that word patience, and I love, I mentioned him twice now. Gary Vaynerchuk should start buying me booze for this, but I think he's
got a wine company. He's
got a wine company. Yeah, absolutely. Let's and all this stuff. Gary V is the solid dude, but. One of the things I love is he talked about, and we mentioned this a while back, is that there's no such thing as overnight success. And I think people see all of this stuff going on. They see all of these things. And I had a friend of mine, he called me up. We've been trying to get together for coffee for a little while. And he said, hey, I'd love to just look over your shoulder one day and see how you do all the things that you're doing. Yeah, we'll just start doing Wine Wednesdays and Tequila Tuesdays and we just keep going every day. Yeah. But with what we talked about, he's like, let me look over your shoulder how you do some of the videos and some of the stuff. And I showed him the equipment that I use and the tools that we use. And he's like, wow, because what we often see is where somebody is. We never see the journey that they took to get there, right? And so even people that I look up to, it's always like, man, I'm like, I wish I was doing what they're doing. And we just think like they just all of a sudden did it. But most people are like, well, I've been doing this 6 months. It's not working. I'm going to try something different, right? And so that's kind of what goes on. I'm not saying not just musicians, but entrepreneurs. People try stuff out. For us, when we started this Whiskey Friday, when I started my blog, when I started my podcast, the whole the mindset has to be, I don't know what's going to happen. I just know I'm going to build this as part of the structure because I have a vision. I have the goals. We've set strategies, and this is something we're going to do every week, every day. These are the things that we're going to take action on. And when these things start happening, here's what we're going to do. We come back to what we're talking today is dissecting the conversation. What we talked about last week was scaling and predictability. And it just starts from $1. And then we scale to 5 and then to 10 and then 1,000. That's how you scale to 100,000. But if we don't know how to scale, if we don't know what the metrics look like for that $1,000, we won't know what the metrics look like for $100,000. And like you were saying, you may get there and you may not. But if you get there, you might not know what to do with it. And there's people that do that and they blow it, right? And it's whether you're an entrepreneur or artist, doesn't matter. And so from a scalability factor, that's what ends up absolutely sabotaging people. We're just going to, I want to try and keep it tight on time here. I'm going to do another 10 minutes here. I want to talk about asking for commitment, asking people for money, asking people to take action on things, and why that's kind of weird sometimes and what we can do to get really good at that. I'm going to start with my man, Greg G Money. Talk to us about commitment.
It takes practice, by the way. It's not easy. I just didn't like it in the beginning because I'm not really a salesperson. By the way, Matt, thank you for your contribution.
Yeah, Matt, thanks for joining, brother.
Yeah, ex-military, I can relate there. I was in the Navy. It takes practice, and I had to figure out a way to integrate it into my initial consultation or my whatever. If someone comes to me and says, I'm interested, they're kicking the tires, they're checking out the features, and then that's okay. And I'm not coming out of the gate with the price. That's okay, because that is not the way to go. Mm-hmm. But like I said last week, beautiful words are, how do I pay you? That doesn't always happen. It just doesn't always happen. But it's nice if we can just get to the point where the value is coming out of the gate. Absolutely nothing but value. And then hopefully at that point, not always, because I'm the same way. Price is it's not even an issue. Now, occasionally I'll have someone that says, it's going to take me a payday to get it together. That's perfectly fine. Totally. But here's the key thing for me is follow up. It's follow up. If they say it's in 2 weeks, then I follow up in 2 weeks. Hey, how you doing? et cetera, et cetera. And I just wanted to touch base with you and let you know if there's anything you need, let me know. I have a lady now who I did a consultation with 3 months ago. Once every month, I just follow up with her. How are you? And by the way, if you can do a video email, 60 seconds or less, you're going to knock it out of the park, even if it takes them 6 months to get the money to pay whatever your price is. I don't care if it's $200 or $2,000 or $200,000. You send a video email 60 seconds or less as a follow-up. You are just really going to, you're just really going to be in there. So I don't know if that made any sense or not.
Absolutely. I love it.
Yeah. It takes
Nicole,
time to
welcome
do
back.
Hey.
Chatterbacks.
Can I quickly add something? For my no.
No, I was just looking at Mike Bomb.
Oh.
Mike is Bomb.
That's who I use.
Bomb. I've been checking that out. It actually looks pretty cool. Nicole, jump in. What are you going to say about commitment?
I was going to say, I have a couple clients, and recently they've just started we've been trying to focus on getting their referrals up and getting reviews up online. And I like how, Greg, you were talking about the video email. Well, one of the things that I've noticed that we've implemented in follow-up emails with a mechanic shop that I've been working for is now they're sending a follow-up email of, thank you so much for your service. How was it? Why don't you give us some feedback? And I've had a couple, they've said to me, they've had the most amazing response just by having this email go out and saying, we care about about your experience with our business and how much more business they're actually getting from it. So sending out the video email or sending out any kind of follow-up is key to keeping that relationship, because not everybody will care. They say, yeah, I got your money, on to the next one. And it's, those people who are coming back become your brand ambassadors, and they're going to tell everyone else about how great their experience was because they feel special coming to you.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
K-Dog.
Yeah, that's really cool, and I like the feedback. Reviews are massive in our industry. Getting people to talk about their experience, and it really builds rapport with your next client. The next client's way more likely to trust what you have to say afterwards if they've been referred by them or by a friend from their experience. So it is massive, and that kind of leads into the authenticity aspect of it. When we're really authentically interested in what people have to think about what we do, and we really want to solve these issues for them because we're passionate about it, it comes across in a completely different way than just trying to grab people's money.
Yeah.
Completely different way. They are looking at you as being a person on their team.
Partners.
You are a person on their team. There's somebody that they don't have to hire and pay CPP and EI for and everything else, but you are a person on their team that they need in order to be successful in life. And it's something that you've got the expertise that they don't, and you can see a little bit further than they do, or you're more interested in it. And it doesn't matter if you need your bathroom cleaned. Somebody that does it passionately is somebody you'll always rehire, and you'll send out reviews.
Yeah.
It's just period.
Hey, who's your bathroom guy?
Well, we have a bathroom girl. We've got some eco. We have some eco.
I love it. No, I'm in your. I'm all up in your grill. I'm up in your beard.
Joe, Joe, you're getting heavy personal, Joe. Come on now.
Come on, man. Who's your bathroom girl? No, what I was gonna say. Here's something that I always talk about with commitment is we can have the way that I break down, and I can if anybody sends me, I'll put my email address in here. If anybody wants, I have a tool that I usually sell for about $20. And a video, but I will change grow achieve.com. If you just email me and tell me that you're on this blab at my email there, I'll send that tool to you with the videos and all the resources for that for free. But I use this. It's called a rubric. It avoids all of the scripting and all the BS that comes with sales conversations, because that's what I want to bring it back to the sales conversation here. And one of the things that we talk about is asking for commitment. And asking people for money, because we go back to what we talk about, money priming and all the psychology around our association with money and all the studies that I read. I won't go into them, but they talk about, that when we think about money from other people or what we want, we subconsciously create these barriers and distance and are less likely to help. And so when we get to that point of commitment, if we've done this great work to build relationships, ask good questions, share insights, create, rapport, be authentic. And then we get to the part where we're like, now we want something from them and we are weak. And we say, well, Curtis, what it would be is like, if it's okay, if we do this, it's kind of like this, or all this weird things we do. And we've talked about the psychology of the brain and the neuroscience before. People all of a sudden go, wait a minute, you're not confident. And all of a sudden now I'm not confident. Yeah. And I feel weird because you feel weird. And I don't like this. This feels bad. And so commitment and asking people to take action should never come from a place of weakness. If you come from a place of weakness, you lose. All of the great work you've done to build the relationship, you screwed it up. And so a commitment request should come from a place of, I'm excited, not for me to get your money, but I'm excited for you to be doing something cool. Now the next step goes like this and it goes like this. And instead of creating this barrier of, I'm sorry to ask you for the next step, we say, here's what you need to do. Here's the next step, right? Because I know the process, you don't. So here's what you do. And if somebody says no, that's fine. That's totally fine. But if they say, I'm not quite sure, let me think about it. You say, okay, what's holding you back? Let's talk about that. And you get into a real conversation. And if you say, okay, if you're not ready to do this, why don't we do this? And let's look at this. We start to give options. But the moment we step away from this great, authentic, genuine place, and we start to be weak and unconfident, and we start to feel like we're trying to take from somebody, we lose the battle. Would you guys agree?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's I hate to say it, but it's an art. Because I respect commission salespeople in my field, which is banking. And they're out there every day meeting people, realtors, people, whatever. And they're bringing those deals in every day to keep the door open. And there was a time when I did not appreciate that. I was in the back office. I'm like, you lazy sacks, you're making way more money than me. Guess what? I was jealous. Yeah. I've seen a few checks. People don't show me their check. But the thing is, they have mastered that art of that balance. There's a time when you have to call the client and go, this is not going to work in the 11th hour. And I don't like to make that phone call. That's just me. But because they're willing to make that phone call, they get paid 5 times more than I do if they're really good at what they do. Now, if they're average, they probably make a little bit more than I do. But I happen to work with a team of people that are definitely above average. And I know they know how to say what you're saying when it comes to price. Okay, let's just talk about this. And for some, it's a roadblock, and for others, it's just like part of the process.
Yeah, and so, part of the funny part is that, like, I know, like, I send emails, I do proposals. I sent off 3 really big proposals yesterday, and then I was thinking about, because I always think about what it's like as a buyer. Like, as a buyer, you want to have the thing, but you're just like you're making sure that you cover your bases, right? And so when I send my email, I send this proposal. It's usually about 3 or 4 pages, whatever it is. We do all this stuff. There's all this shit that's in there. And then in the email, I was like, right at the beginning, I'm like, let me just make sure you don't have to sort through this proposal. Here's the punchline. The price I'm giving you looks like this, and here's why. And now when you go through the proposal, here's what I want you to look for. Here's what I'm thinking. Here's what it is. If you like it, let's move forward. And I think that for me, that just feels right. Like when somebody's just like, I want to move forward, I'm not sure, and they're evaluating it. Why? Like, people just hide things and they get weird about it. And they just do like this stupid stuff that, like when I'm asking somebody for $100,000, I'm like, I'm just going to tell them that's what I want. And the rest of it we'll figure out. And if they're like, nah, I don't want to do that much, we figure out rather than like discounting, we say, what's the right meeting of the minds? And that's how the sales conversation should go. Whether you want $10 or $1 million, it's the same thing. And I think too many times we make decisions, like we said last time, is from our own wallets, from our own business, from our own bank accounts. And we got to step away from that and say, you know what? I want to help somebody solve a problem, and it's meaningful and it's worth a couple bucks. That's it.
An example with me, let's say the 6-month coaching package is X.
Yes.
And they're not ready for whatever reason, and I have the guts to explore that and do an effort to understand what that is. And let's just say we figure out what that is. And it's just something that's just happening. It's whatever it is. My old lady just left me, my bank account, whatever. Okay, let's look at plan B. So if plan B is, we're not going to do a 6-month coaching, let's do a 3-month. Or if they say, I can't even do 3, all I can do is about a month with you. So I'm going to go bare bones, and here's what we're going to do. All we're going to do is we're going to talk about rapid debt elimination, nothing else other than you getting out from underneath this pile of shit that you've been having on your shoulders. Mm-hmm. And if I'm charging you half, I'm not saying this to the client. If I'm charging only half of the 6-month package, there's no question of value in my mind. And I've had people say, well, I don't have the money. Now, I'm not like, well, go put it on a credit card. That's not who I am. All I'm saying is I put the value out there, and if they see the value and I communicated it effectively, then they're going to figure out a way to go get that damn money.
That's it.
And if I'm only charging them half, I don't lay awake at night and sweat and go, am I over? Are you kidding me? I know the slavery you're dealing with because you're laying awake at night worrying about paying the next bill. I've never been there, but my debt got to the point where it was like, I'm feeling pretty uncomfortable here. No one's ever called me and said, where's the check? But I know people that have been there. So the question of value has to be totally out of the equation for the business person.
Wonderful. And you're bang on it. Joel's going to join us when his camera comes on here. And I'm going to stop the recording. I'm going to do like a summary here for each one of you guys here. I'm going to start with Curtis. I'm going to go to Greg, and hopefully Joel shows up when his stuff works. Start with Curtis, go to Greg. I just want to close up and just talk about, because we kind of got off track, but you know what? Screw it. This is Whiskey Friday. We do whatever we want. And I sponsored it today myself, so it doesn't matter. But we're going to talk about, the sales conversation and why we need to really think this thing through for our business and what it means to like really hold tight to what we believe when we're talking to potential customers. Start with Curtis.
Yeah, it's massive, your self-image and what you've decided, what you've really decided on your value. I find that, that's the beginning. Like as soon as you're able to, realize and recognize your value that you're bringing to and the power that you have towards bringing a solution to people, that's when people are going to start investing and recognizing, how you can solve problems for them. And for me, hands down, it has to be just being authentic. I just can't say enough about, consulting with authenticity and just being able to recognize that, where you are at, you can provide so much value for people, and then you can decide what your, what the exchange of money is in that circumstance. When you're really comfortable with that, people are going to look to you and say, you know what, that guy's got it figured out. Whatever he has, whatever he's doing, it's fun, it's cool. Let's just keep going with this. They seem positive. They don't ever put me down. They're very humble. We need to work with that person because they're going to be a person that is going to have wings, and they're going to bring me up this ladder of life. And sometimes that is a little bit tough at times because sometimes you need to, keep your promises, but apologize when you're unable to fulfill your expectations of what they're looking for. And, we haven't had an opportunity to really discuss that, but that is a massive, aspect of being able to build rapport and being really authentic with the solution that you're offering people. And thank you everybody that, I didn't start the conversation. So thanks to Mike and to Nicole and to Graham, for starting this out. And if they wanted to jump in and give last words, I can pop off. Just send a message in the.
Awesome. I'm just typing to. I don't even have to say it. Chad, we're gonna keep going, but we're gonna stop the record, and then it's gonna get real frisky because we'll just keep drinking for a little bit. I'm gonna kick it to Greg, and then Joel. I like it, man. We're gonna kick it to you in about 2 seconds here. So, Greg. Bring us home with, man, like what does it mean to have a sales conversation and a structure and just really embracing that customer relationship, and go.
Okay. Number one, somebody had to teach me this. I am not the best at it. I'm still working on that. There was a time when it scared the crap out of me. It was my weakest point. I was all about what I can do for you and all that. And then when it came down to the money, it was like, blah, 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 not good. So someone said, look, just use this script or this outline and you'll get comfortable over time. And I did. So once we get to that point, I already know what the value is. And here's the thing about my industry. There are so many gurus out there. I'm like, I don't even have to even poo-poo those people. Curtis said it, be genuine, be real. And it's like they're going to feel it and they're going to know that that's shining through. So once we get to that point, it's like, well, there's certain words you can use. I don't even say this is the price. I'm like, this is your investment. And I'm not saying that one word is golden, but I can tell you it shifted for me. I'm like, this is your investment. And to me, it was an investment for me when I went through the same process, when I paid someone to help me get past what I was dealing with. So it's all about knowing exactly what my value is and being able to be humble enough for me to go, I can't solve every problem you have, but if you tell me the most painful problem that you have, I will do everything in my power to help you make that better in the time that we spend together, whether it's a 6-month full coaching package, a 3-month, a 2-month, a 1 month, or a 2-week. I'm going to give you everything. I'm going to pour everything into you that I know how to pour into you. I have a coaching student right now. She doesn't bother me. We text on a regular basis. And she talk, and it isn't like she's bugging me. And it's just, hey, how are you doing? Happy Thanksgiving, whatever. That's staying connected because I told her the 6-month package includes unlimited access to me. Now, if I'm at work and there's things going on, I don't immediately answer. She understands that. And she has 2 jobs.
Yeah.
So it's just being real. And here's the most important thing for me. Know what your price is. Don't stammer when it comes time to deliver the price. I like Joe, I'd be scared to frickin' death to tell somebody my price is $100,000 because I've never been in that level of the pool before.
It's so fun.
It's okay. But as long as I know that I'm comfortable with what that price is, here's the thing. Deliver that. This is your investment. And if the answer is no, I'm not going to beat my brains out trying to figure out why they're not quite ready. Now, there's an art to that. And there's some people that say, I'm the one sell close. I'm not so sure about that. If we're talking about $100,000, $50,000 or whatever, but I work on that as much as I can. And when I step away, I try to evaluate what I could have done better, but I don't beat myself over the head and go, I did this wrong. They don't like me. And a lot of times, this is my biggest thing, Joe. There's so much fear with money. And I can't slash through that for someone if they just can't let go of that and be willing to work with me. And that's okay.
Yeah,
I'm okay with
cool.
that. I'm okay with that.
No, you're bang on, brother. And I'm gonna kick it. I don't know. I think Joel, you just had 4,000 steps since you signed on.
I got,
and so I'm excited to hear where you are, what you're doing. Where are you from, man? What's going on?
I'm from Portland, but I'm down here in LA right now. I got people working on the house right here, so they're putting in floors. So there was some staple guns going on. So
I love it. You're just like running and I'm like, I like
get out of here. It's too loud.
This guy's legit. So we're closing off now. We're not shutting it all down, but I'm just going to shut the recording down in a couple minutes. But just maybe close off on commitment, customers, having a conversation, having a bit of a plan and a structure around it. Talk about that.
So in regards to closing and commitments, I'm really big on that close should feel natural from the beginning. And I set expectations up right at the get-go and let them know the course of action. And at the end of the whole transaction here, the intention is you're going to buy something. And so when that part comes up, when each part comes up, it's very natural and easy. And it's like, we already talked about what was going to happen. And this is the part of the journey that we're at now. There should be no reservations or unexpected anticipations here. Just this part of the journey here that I laid out for you at the beginning.
Cool. Yep. Cool. What's your business? What are you working on?
So I do sales management for a couple security companies up in Oregon, but now I kind of want to do my own thing and set up a sales consulting company.
Talk to me, man. We got lots of cool stuff we can talk about. And we're sister cities. I know Curtis but he's been part of this, like this great sort of cross promotion between Portland and Victoria. Yeah, Curtis, we want to maybe talk about that for a second. I'm gonna flip it up. Let's go, Curtis. Talk about Portland.
The organization is called Supportland, and I worked for. I did some nonprofit work with a local agency called Think Local First Victoria, and so Think Local First Victoria, as they were trying to increase and use different methods about connecting the people with local buying and stuff like that. They saw what you guys were doing in Portland, and with the Supportland. With the following and what was going on there, and so we brought your folks up to Victoria to show us what they're up to, and totally sold us on the process. Just amazing group, and just supporting local business. Joe and I are on a nonprofit board as well called Young Entrepreneur Society, so we do a lot of nonprofit work, definitely supporting the local businesses, young entrepreneurs, and this is a really great opportunity for us to be able to give back to our community, our international community. And I'm so glad that you guys from our southern neighbors are joining us in this process and really, doing an international, sales consulting or business encouragement development kind of fun project. So, Joe, I bet you have some amazing last words.
Well, first I'm going to say Elvis Butthole 1. I'm so excited that this is a thing. I'm going to, I love it. Money, Butthole 1. Like, I'm just wondering who's got number 2, 3, 4. Like, that's so good. That's so good. But you know what, man? Like, I've been doing sales training, consulting for a long time, and I love this shit. I love it so much, and I love helping people create good problems that come with revenue. And I'm always looking for, like, where's the money? And not from a place of, like, how do we take money from people? But, like, what are people spending money on, right? People like spending money on, and people like doing cool stuff. People like, buying things. People like building a business. And I talk to these companies, and I talk to VPs and CEOs and like lonely consultants and lonely coaches and like lonely entrepreneurs and like everything in between. And when we have conversations, the number one thing that I know that I can bring to the table, and I wish everybody just would bring this to the table, is just, chill the fuck out. Right? It's just like, let's have this conversation. The way that Curtis and I would talk about something is the exact same way, maybe without all the swear words, because I like Whiskey Fridays because I just swear and I don't give a shit. But like in the webinars and everything else we do is very professional. Right. And for me, I don't care if potential clients or current clients join us on this call, because this is who I am. And I don't want this who I am versus who I am on a webinar, who I am on my podcast, who I am on my blog, who I am when I'm talking to my friends to be anybody different, right? Real Time with JG, Chad Tennant. Yeah. And when Curtis and I sit down, and because we're Victoria, we sit down and we have a whiskey and we talk business. We sit on the same nonprofit, the Young Entrepreneur Society. We talk about how do we help our members do cool things? How do we help them build their business? What are the challenges? Why won't people admit they have problems? We go out and network, and I say, how you doing? Everybody's like, I'm great. But in the back of their mind, they're freaking out, right? It's the same thing as, Greg, you're talking about with your clients. It's like, what do we have to do to break down these barriers? What do we have to do to build a conversation that allows people to be, okay, you know what? This is safe. This is a good place. Let's talk about real things. And that comes from us being vulnerable, us being spiritual, us having a real dialogue to say, hey, I get it. I get what you're going through. Whether you buy from me or not, let's just be two people talking about cool stuff. That's it. And let me help you see the way the world works and how things that I know work. And if you buy from me, great. If not, at least you're going to feel better for having this conversation from a sales perspective. And as a coach, as a consultant, as a trainer, as a rock star, everybody that we've had on these conversations, it's the same thing. Is people are out there and they have a couple bucks and they want to spend it on something and they want to believe in the thing they're buying. And if we don't build a system and a structure for helping them spend that money, then shame on us. That's it, yeah. If we succeed in spite of that, then shame on us. And that's kind of the way that this is my little closing rant, but this is what I believe, right? I think that selling and helping people buy is heroic. That's why I have the Sales Hero Academy. I just feel like it's cool. right? I feel like it's great to do to have something and get people to buy from you. And if you don't get people to buy, then you're just not out there helping them see what you see. That's it. That's Chad, Real Time with Joe G. So I'm going to close it with that, and then I'm going to shut off. Anybody have any last comments, anything you want to put up your hand and say one more thing before I pause the recording and we just get drunk and talk business?
Pause
No?
it. Pause it.
Good. Pause it. Boom.